Hello, Cindy. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Claudine. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming to this interview. I'm just so honored to have you with us
Oh,
today. And I know that you have so many inspiring stories to share with us today. So, can you talk to us about yourself?
sure. Claudine knows this, but I don't know if our viewers know this. But I work for Beyond Conquerors. I'm the program planning and marketing director, supporting our ministry.
Mhm.
So that's what I do. I also run a consulting business. I've been running that for several years now, and it's pretty successful. Um, so that's pretty much my life. So,
So I have learned that actually based on the conversations we have, you
mhm.
have gone through so many things in life, like bullies and also people going, and also, people hurting you in life. And that caused you to lack some confidence. So can you please talk to us about, the time when you lack confidence, even though you told me a little bit about that. Can you please tell our viewers the time when you lacked of confidence?
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Claudine. Yeah, when I was growing up, I was consistently bullied by other children in my neighborhood, and that started around the age of 3 years old to around 16. Um, and on top of that, my parents didn't really believe me when I first started being bullied. They even laughed, told me, the boy that was doing it was just, he liked me, which wasn't necessarily the case. Or if he
Mm,
did, that was a very strange way of showing it.
mm,
Um, so it eventually stopped, primarily because this particular boy that was down the street that bullied me all that time, along with he got many other children to do different things, and it
mm.
ranged anywhere from physical bullying, like hurting me physically, hitting me, and
Wow.
stuff like that, to emotional abuse in
Wow.
that way as well, just telling me that I wasn't good enough. And
Mm,
I he would just do a lot of awful things. And um, when I was 16, in high school, I um, it was the last time that he did it. He had slammed a locker door on my face.
what?
I was reaching into the locker that I had. It was at my head level. I had a top locker, and he came along and just slammed it onto my face.
Mm,
And of course, that afternoon, I went home. My dad happened to be home when I arrived home, which was actually unusual for my father um, to be home because he usually worked a lot of hours. But he immediately asked me what happened to my face because by
mhm.
then I had developed a bad bruise. I had a cut
Oh my,
where the edge of the locker had actually hit me
what?
here.
Oh.
And so then I had to explain to my father, and my father was a very stern man. So he got really, really mad, and he asked me why I didn't tell. I said, "This has been going on for years, Dad."
Mm,
And he was
mm.
like, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Well, I did, but that was a long time ago." So he was really angry, and he went down the street and essentially had a talk with the boy's father, and it never happened again. Um, he said that the boy should not be anywhere near me, like within 100 feet, kind of a thing.
Mm,
So even in school,
mm,
the teachers actually had to move this boy
mhm,
so that he wasn't sitting anywhere near me
mhm, mhm,
because of what my father ended up communicating with to this boy's father.
mhm,
But because of that, all that time, of course, I developed this severe lack of confidence in myself.
Yeah.
I was a very, um, uh, yeah, lack of confidence is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I just really didn't believe, I had no faith in myself whatsoever. I didn't believe I could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe I was good enough. I thought I was ugly. I mean, lots of different things, right? And um, because my father, that was the first time that anybody had actually stood up for me in my life.
Mm.
Um, really. I mean, even friends, they would shy away, whenever I was being bullied because they didn't want to get stuck in the middle of it, right? So, and I was an only child, so I didn't have any brothers or sisters that I was going to school with. So I had
Mm.
no one to really step up and like defend me
Yeah.
until that was the first time. And I think that that sort of broke a barrier for me in the sense that I finally started to realize, maybe I'm not so bad,
Mm.
because it put me on a path. And I think because of that, because my heart became somewhat open to this idea, even though I didn't know it, it was a subconscious thing. I believe that the Lord started bringing a lot of people into my life from that point forward because I saw a change
Mm-hmm.
in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And um, and those individuals that the Lord brought into my life slowly began to build up the confidence in
Mm-hmm.
who I am and who I think I am today, which
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm a child of God, reinforcing you're a
Exactly.
child of God. He's given me unique qualities, just
Mm-hmm.
like he gives everybody else.
Yeah.
And he'll use those unique qualities for his purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just
Mm-hmm.
really important that, but even like besides, I think recognizing that you're a child of God is vital and important, but I think also recognizing who you are within the world as well, and that you can contribute something, that you
Yes.
have value.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was really reinforced to me around the time I graduated from high school in my first few years of college. So,
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes. And with Beyond Conquerors, I know, and then I see what you have been contributing to this organization, as well as so many other people. And so God has been using you in great ways. But before we continue, I wanted to ask you, have you struggled or did you struggle to forgive those who have bullied you in the past, and also your parents?
yeah, I really did. I struggled with that a lot. I had a lot of anger during that entire time that I was being bullied through high school or through all of my school years. Um, and while I became a Christian very young in my life, I didn't understand forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I much like, it's pretty common misconception, at least that's my belief today. But I viewed it as benefiting the other person, like as if I was giving them something. Um, and because
Mm-hmm.
I was so angry at, these children that have bullied me and my parents for not supporting and laughing at me, I didn't want to forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to let that go. I kept harboring it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until it wasn't really until about 9 years ago that I began to understand what the Lord means when he talks about forgiveness. At that time, I was going through something else where I really needed to forgive some people that had hurt me. And what really triggered it was a song by Matthew West.
Mm-hmm.
As a Christian artist. And in his song, it talks about how to forgive. And
Mm-hmm.
specifically, it was these lyrics that made me rethink my perception.
Mm-hmm.
So the lyrics are, it's clear the bitter, it'll clear the bitterness away. It can even set a prisoner free. There is no end to what its power can do. So let it go and be amazed by what you see through the eyes of grace.
Mm-hmm.
the prisoner that it really freezes you. And it was just like that really cinched it, right? Because
Mm-hmm,
I had
mm-hmm.
been a prisoner to these feelings for so long. And
Yeah.
it really just it was like, wow, dawning light bulb going off over my head, you know. And so I realized that when I continue to dwell on whatever someone did to me, continue, and I would constantly talk about things with people around me. You know, this
Mm-hmm.
is what happened to me.
Yeah.
And well, it's not so bad, you know, initially when something like that happens, it's like as if I expected continually talking about it would make it better and would make it go away. I think that subconsciously that was what I was going through. And when I talk about it, I relive everything. I get very angry, upset,
Mm-hmm.
fearful. Um, and you know, it really was like I was reliving those events. About 6 years ago, so it was 9 years ago when I heard the first song, 6 years ago, when someone told me at that time that, and I don't remember the individual in particular, but that if I continue to talk about the terrible events in my life over and over, like I had been doing, that it affects my psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And I could really see that because they said essentially it's like you're reliving the event over and over and over, which is harmful to you. I mean, because you literally
Yeah.
experience all of those emotions again and again and again. And it's like as if you just literally are reliving it.
Yeah.
Um, and at that point, I realized that's what the biggest benefit of forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
is when you actually forgive, you let it go.
You
You
let
know,
it go. Mm-hmm.
and that's what the song was talking about, the prisoner that it really freezes you.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did forgive and I finally began to work on forgiving all the different things in my life, it just took such a huge weight off of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll never forget what you know it what that what they did to me necessarily, but I can still forgive them and it provides a path for me just to move on with my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, and I just also want to say that I'm really glad that I learned how to forgive,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because both of my parents are now passed. Um, and I think my approach to life in the past several years would have been very different.
Yeah. Wow. That is so inspiring. You mentioned that song, and I love that song myself. So you said that your approach to life would have been different. So what did you mean by that?
Yeah, so shortly after my dad passed away in 2015,
Mhm.
I was faced with an extremely hostile work environment, as well as some of the people that were running where I was working, they were extremely unethical. And it's not that I hadn't faced hostile work environments before. I've experienced them a number of times, but I had not faced a situation that was like this one where it had potentially significant impacts to my personal life and professional life, legally, just and as well as just emotionally. It was extremely difficult. Um, I can't go into all the details of what happened because I'm on under a confidentiality agreement,
Mhm, mhm.
but it was a really tough situation. And as a result of the challenges that the company I was working for was facing, I was laid off in March of 2016. And at the time, you know, I was glad to escape the environment because then I didn't have to deal with this hostile work environment and these people that were really unethical anymore. But I had a lot of fears at that point in time because I was now faced with not having a job. And this was the second time within a 5 year period that um, I had been laid off. And the last time that I was laid off in 2011, it took me over 11 months to find a new job. However, the big difference between the two layoffs is in 2011, I received a very large severance package. and it was very generous. This time, I received very, very little. I mean, it was almost not even worth mentioning, kind of little,
Mhm.
and because the company just, couldn't afford to handle, paying anything out, um, of a severance package. And sometimes that happens. Um, but because of that, here I am faced with all these fears of financially, what am I going to do if it takes me 11 months again to find a job? I don't know that we can survive.
Mhm.
Um, and I, you know, so at the time, I was, looking at that, and we had very little savings. And so I put as much as I could, on after we went through the savings, I could on credit, but that only gets you so far.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and at some point, I was facing unemployment was running out within, the next couple of months, and I wasn't getting a job. And we had become homeless. We had been living in a hotel, but again, putting that on credit wasn't going to work.
Mhm.
And we didn't know where we were going to go. And
Wow.
however, the Lord provided a path. Um, and
Yes.
I was extremely blessed that a family member was willing to take us in at that time. Um, and it was during this time that I also saw for the first time in my entire life how the Lord really does meet our needs. He provided a roof over my head,
Mhm.
food to eat, medical
Mhm.
care, even, and
Mhm.
transportation. Um, and eventually, as we had been taken through that, and I began to see these things, you know, within a couple of months after that really desperate time where we ran out of unemployment and stuff like that, um, he led me to clients for my consulting business.
Mhm.
And slowly the money started coming in.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I was no longer necessarily dependent on the support of my family and my friends. Um, and I thought that that was the biggest challenge that I would face because it was a really big challenge.
Mhm.
Most people have never been, at least in the United States, most people have never been that destitute, um, as we were. And, there's a lot of poverty, but, it's a higher percentage of people that have never experienced anything like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, However, I fully believe that the Lord used this time as well to prepare me for what I would really face as probably one of my most difficult challenges, um, which was in, 2019. It was discovered, and this is a few years after, all of this happened. It was discovered that I had a tumor growing between my brain and my skull in my right frontal lobe. Um, at that time, that it was discovered, it was more than 2 inches on all sides, which
Wow.
means that it was putting a lot of pressure on my brain, um, and causing cognitive difficulties. Like I wasn't thinking straight. I had a difficult time doing my job, and even communicating was sometimes challenging. Um, so at first, when it was first discovered, they were able to give me some medicine, and I actually chose to wait to talk to a neurosurgeon at that time, until we received another MRI, which is what they use, to scan your brain. And that second MRI, we were going to see how fast it was growing.
Mhm. Wow.
So I chose this path mainly because having somebody cut into my head just entirely freaked me out. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it was not something I was really wanting to go through. On top of that, we were living in the Las Vegas, Nevada area, and that's where my father passed away. And I
Sorry.
saw a lot of the challenges that he went through with the medical industry there, and it wasn't a good experience. So I had all this baggage, if you will, of really like seeing my dad go through all these terrible things, through all of the years that he was sick. And I had no confidence in the medical system in Las Vegas. However, before I had my second MRI, we moved to a new state that had a better healthcare system. And this ended up being a huge blessing, because I did have that second MRI in April of last year, 2020,
Mhm.
and I was finally able to get. It took about 5 months. I was supposed to get the MRI in 3 months, and it took me about 5 months due to the move and some other things. When I had that MRI, it was discovered that the tumor had grown another 3/4 of an inch on all sides. So now it was around 3 inches on all sides, which was very alarming because that's growing at a very fast rate.
Yeah.
So I immediately made an appointment to talk to a neurosurgeon, who this neurosurgeon that I found was just fantastic. And he recommended that I immediately have surgery. So I mean, I met with them in the middle of April, and I agreed and had surgery on May 1st. So within just a few weeks, I didn't have much time to prepare. Um, and at that time in 2020, we're in the middle of the COVID lockdown. Our state was locked down. All other states were locked down. So because of that, the hospitals weren't allowing anyone to come and visit people. Um, you couldn't have visitors at all, which meant that I was going to be facing being alone in the hospital, having just had brain surgery,
Hmm.
and have no family or friends or anything coming to see me. So at first, I was really, really scared. But I had a lot of people praying for me. I was praying that, I would be able to get over some of my fears, because I still was dealing with a lot of the fears regarding my father and being in a hospital. Um, but the Lord really gave me this just huge sense of peace, because I
Mhm.
had learned to lean on the Lord so much since 2016,
Mhm.
that I realized that I really didn't have anything to worry about. I mean, at
Mhm.
that point, I knew where, if he decided to take me home, I knew where I was going. And so
Mm.
this just huge peace came over me. So on April 30th, the night before my surgery, my husband dropped me off at the hospital. And of course, we didn't know if we'd see each other again here on earth. Um, and yet I remained completely at peace. The next morning, I had my surgery first thing in like 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, something like that. I had my surgery, and I woke up several hours later and to a wonderful, caring staff. I mean, my doctor came in to see me immediately. I had a wonderful nurse. I had great medical care the entire time I was in the hospital. Um, and so that peace just remained with me the entire time I was there. And I also saw the Lord answer so many other prayers. Within 24 hours after, they were able to remove the tumor completely. And within that first 24 hours, all those cognitive issues that I had experienced were gone. I
Mm.
didn't have any brain damage. I wasn't experiencing any problems. And I was able to clearly think and reason like I used to before I had my tumor. Um, I also healed a lot faster over the next several weeks,
Mm.
faster than anybody had expected,
Yeah.
really.
Mhm.
Um, and everyone was very surprised, including my neurosurgeon. And, I continued to heal, even today, I'm still going through the healing process, but, I'm so thankful that, the Lord answered just so many prayers throughout that entire process.
Wow. What a,
Yeah.
this is very encouraging, inspiring. And, I've been with you I've known you for 3 years now.
Hmm.
Yeah, from yeah, my old job. And you are such a very good person. And Every time I talk to you, I feel encouraged. And when I learned about your tumor and then the surgery, I was also, in the natural, I was worried, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. But then, me too, I have been praying. And when you told me a few weeks later that I went through it and I'm feeling better, and I'm like, oh yes, thank God, because only God can heal you that fast. Only
Right.
God can do that. Only His favor can do that. His mercy can do that. And
Right.
so, yeah, I thank God for that. And also, during all the things that you have been through in life, and you have decided to forgive those who have offended you. That as well is something that pleases the Lord. He
Mm-hmm.
wants us to forgive those who have offended
Right.
us. And so when we forgive, we allow His Spirit to work more in us. And when we forgive, He protects us. When we forgive, He provides for us. It's like we have more door. We have opened the door for Him to bless us even more, because that's what He recommended in His word. And I'm so blessed by your story this morning. And to our viewers, I want to let you know that if somebody has offended you, please forgive that person. And so you can be able to move on in life. Yes, you will come across difficulties. You may come across a sickness, a financial problem, but the Lord that you serve, He will take you out of that financial problem. He will heal you. He will take you out of that illness. He is a faithful God, and He will do just that. And looking at Sandy today, Sandy is, she is even doing better than, the way I know her 3 years ago. And that is a blessing of the Lord. And I pray that the Lord help you who are watching us, to forgive those who have wronged you in life, so you can be able to access His presence, access all the promises that He has for you, access all His blessings, His protection that He has promised to you, His healing that He has promised you, so you can be able to experience all those things. Thank you so much for watching this morning, and may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord protect you. In the name of Jesus. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.